All right. All right. Hi, y'all. We are here today inside the game Occupy White Wall, which was made, I think, by the company called Cultura. They also have a site called Cultura with a K. Definitely recommend checking out their site and their game. Pretty much kind of like you see, it's a Sims-like game, but instead of building a life, you build like your own virtual art gallery with real art that exists in the world. So we kind of made this virtual exhibit that mirrors a real in-person exhibit that we had in DC. And this is kind of like the extension of that exhibit with a guided tour featuring some of the artists that was there. So welcome all. Just in case I didn't introduce myself earlier, I go by Los just because it's the easiest way for different people to pronounce my name. So I am your host, Los with the most. Ha 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 ha. Let's get started.
Here and we'll jump. I won't say any more words about Love for Immigrants. We'll jump straight into focusing on the arts, which is the most exciting part, and sharing your stories.
Word. Look at this gallery, guys. It's so live. So many people. Oh, and this is like the little in-game currency, just as FYI. And like as an Easter egg, when like COVID was in full swing and like toilet paper was scarce, this game, as a joke, decided to make the currency from like these little Rubik's cube to like actual rolls of toilet paper. So like you could open up your gallery to like it's a very funny thing. Anyways, let's get started. So that room seems a little busy, so let's start with Rahsa first. All right, so I actually kind of know this piece a little bit more intimately than like the other pieces in this gallery, just because I've known Rahsa for a couple of years, and I actually remember seeing on her Instagram like the sketches of her starting this out way back in the day. And yeah, like just in case people aren't comfortable with the UI here, basically on the right where my mouse is the description of like the art and other like metadata about it, right? So I'll obviously let Rahsa speak to this more, but I guess I just wanted to like insert my own commentary and have a conversation about this. So first of all, just for context, Rahsa, her artist name is also Yonic. She's pretty much like an international artist at this point. She's lived all over and done tons of different stuff. She's of Puerto Rican Brazilian descent and from Jersey originally, but like I said, she's been all over. And a lot of her work, I would say, centers around like human nature or like the nature of human like psychology or spirituality, I guess would say. So I know that you mentioned before in your bio that you like to blend like philosophy and mythology. And one of the reasons why I like this piece so much is like there's this concept in Greek mythology where back in the day, humans used to have two heads, four arms, four legs, right? And the Greek gods were so scared of that, so frightened of the potential of humans, right? That they split us. So now we only have one head, two arms, two bodies, and then dooming us essentially to wander the earth looking for this other part of us that like kind of makes us whole, right? And obviously that's about like partnership and coupling. But what I like about Ross is like it's more so an introverted look on the different us that we occupy, right? Like it's, instead of being a second head that's like another entity, it's like these are all the different sides of Yonic, right? So it's like in that sense, the Greek gods were so afraid of our potential that they literally had to divide us and like, separate us from ourselves. But I feel like what Rahsa does really well in this piece is incorporate the many different parts of herself. And I remember when I used to see like the earlier sketches of this, remind me, Rahsa, weren't some of these like actual like I don't know how you did the bottom one where the girl's like touching her ankle, but like some of these poses you would actually do, right, to like help you sketch it out.
Yeah, sure. So I love that reference of Greek mythology also. I think that mythology and spirituality informs my work so much. And one thing that was involved in this piece was that it's based off a yogic principle, which I remember, like you said, I'm an international artist. And so I traveled to an ashram and learned a lot about like yogic principles in Vietnam. And I remember being so inspired by some of the concepts. And this was after I'd started the piece, like years after. And it talked about the three bodies, like the celestial body, the mental body, the physical body. And so I just loved that idea. And I had already started this piece. And Carlos, we actually saw a piece in Chelsea that I remember was similar to this. It was like the Vesuvian Man. It was like a play on it.
Oh, I think I do remember what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm doing a piece just like that. And so I
That's
actually
right.
only finished it at the very end or the very beginning of this year. Yeah, very end of last year, very beginning of this year. I think I finished it in Jan.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure, okay, that we're recording now that we actually started the art tour.
Yeah, we are.
I
Okay,
think
perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay, great.
There's a recording button in the corner going, like blinking.
Cool. Yeah, I can't see it, so thank you for verifying. So awesome.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no, that's good input. And actually, yeah, I could see what you mean now. Like, you know, kind of extrapolating the Greek thing to what you were mentioning before. Like, again, the Greeks were more about like, we're constantly yearning for this partnership, right? Where we need to be completed, right? But like, I feel like what you were talking about is more about we need to complete ourselves first, right? And it's almost like fitting those two like frame of works. I would say it's like you were focusing on completing yourself, right? So that if and when you find that other head and arms and legs that were separated from you, it's a complement to your completion, right? Rather than like, you know what I mean? So yeah, no,
I use this
really powerful.
concept of movement very often, of like one body that's extending into different positions and interacting and interjoining through each other. And so I love that sense of movement, not just because of like futurism and like kind of the start of abstracted art, but also because it really does create this circle of an exchange within a piece. That's like, it is really this journey back to ourselves. And this piece really kicked off a series for me that was about like the self-love journey. And I think it's about finding everything you need within oneself. So yeah.
No, it's a dope piece. And I think I remember you saying that this was supposed to be like a personal Horcrux, right? I'm not a Harry Potter head. I suck at pronouncing
my
things.
soul in a piece.
Cool. So for those of you that are not aware, I actually pulled up what the Horcrux is because again, I missed that boat. I was a Jehovah's and wasn't allowed to. But if I understand correctly, basically it's like you insert a piece of your actual essence, your soul, into this object. So it's kind of like a way to preserve yourself, so that even if the body gets destroyed, even if that essence still persists, right? So adapting that from this, to me, what like colored my perception of this painting after learning what a Horcrux was is like kind of like the concept of time worms. I don't know if y'all ever heard of this from like the movie. Oh, Yeliz is here. From like Donnie Darko, those things where like we're just this constant time worm that's moving through not just like space, but like space time, right? And how this time worm changes, right, through the many stages of our life, right? So this Horcrux is called kind of like a snapshot of a time worm in different instances of its progression, right? So yeah, no, a very, very powerful piece and very cool tie-in from pop culture, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. So again, guys, I just really want to emphasize, Maribel built this.
And if I may, I just want to welcome Yeliz, who just arrived. Yeliz, we're just finishing up talking about Yonic's work, also known by Yonic, but his name Rahsa. And if I may, there's one part of the meaning that I had a question about, and there's two things before we move on. Is what awakening means to you in the documents that I have. It's just so beautiful, the message. And the second thing is the spirituality aspect that comes from this work. So the first thing, the awakening means that I read, I want to read it before we go for everyone, is here. Yonic says, art has been there for Yonic through these changes to channel their energy into something positive, to create something from nothing but feeling. Art is inherently a transformation in their eyes, and the theme of transformation, life and death, movement, and the enigma of human nature finds itself in their work constantly as inspiration integrated. Also healing and dedicating to a practice. Art is a symbol of vibrant and dynamic transformation that lives in their work, because from transformation their work was born. So I just wanted to read that. It was just so moving. And you're not the only one that has death as a theme, which
Yeah.
is we'll see later on. Wole will speak about their work. This is sort of a theme that's come up in more than one piece, and almost without you all knowing each other, you're tied by this one element of through art, which is also unique. And spirituality. I was also reading a little bit more about your work, and what really struck me is this idea of past selves. This belief and the spirituality part coming through that, of all the selves that existed and exist, and how you bring it to this art piece so beautifully. So that was it. If you have anything else to add, that was my little bit there.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I actually reread my application today in terms of getting prepared, and yeah, I really think that that's such a integral piece of this work and my body of work. That transformation is sort of the essence of art in my eyes, because I really think of a blank canvas as just, the starting point of something magnificent. Art itself is something that is really alchemized from that nothingness, just through creativity, imagination, and experience, really informing those images. And yeah, I mean, spirituality and mythology, especially from Latin roots, really influences my images and my imagination. So
Also,
I appreciate that recognition.
no, for sure. Yeah, thank you for the insight, Marvel. I also want to point out, Yonic is a little bit of a liar, because if you look at the description, it says it's 6 feet tall, and if I remember correctly, aren't you like 5'4", dude?
It's true. I'm 5'6". This piece is larger than me, so
Yeah.
it's actually the body is bigger than mine.
That's fair. So I was like, when I saw the description, I was like, wait, she's not. No, she can't be.
No, it's larger than me.
No, that's fair. I was just like, did she hit a growth spurt the last time I saw her? Like, nah. Like,
That would be awesome.
right? Like,
Well, that's a
right.
good point. I think because Yonic is, from what I know, is experimenting with becoming a muralist. So this is like the version of herself that's taller than she is. So I mean, with art, you can become whatever you want. Okay, so she wants to be 6 feet tall. Let her be 6 feet tall. Right?
No, for sure.
6 feet tall.
All right. So yeah, let's continue. And by the way, for all the other guests on our stream, like, even if it's not your piece, if you have your own 2 cents that you want to add, totally feel free, like, to jump in. So yeah, I missed the dark room tons of the time. And I guess, like, in his own words, he would say that his work is very, like, eclectic, in the sense that, like, I don't know if people here like MMA, but I'm gonna use the analogy of MMA, where, like, the whole point of MMA is you don't specialize in one thing, right? You're an all-rounder, and you're at least proficient at all these things that you're well-rounded in. So you have to, like, borrow a little bit of everything to be a proficient fighter, right? And I would kind of, like, describe his art like that, because I feel like he borrows from many different aesthetics to, like, make a very unique style for like the art they make. So how would you put, like, I guess, that, like, do you feel like I kind of, like, capture correctly, or do you feel like I'm way off base and, like, you view your art, like, differently?
No, you're good. I will say this is the first time I think my art has been compared to MMA, so I'll take it. But yeah, I mean, I like to say that, especially, like, when it comes to creating, that for me, the story isn't really complete in one specific medium. So I like to combine kind of the work that I do with photography, with video, as well as kind of the principles of graphic design to really tie everything together. So this is really neat, especially being able to kind of present the work in this way, because I think it's really the first time I've really seen it presented in a virtual reality environment. So, everything about completing the story, this is a really great way of being able to do that. But even thinking about, like, the way it's framed, the way it's matted, it's all really, really cool to experience.
Word. Yeah, no, and one thing I really like, and I guess we should intro, like, these 2 pieces first before we explore it. But first, just for starters, these 2 pieces are called the Sprite and Birth of the Sprite, sorry. And the whole point of this piece, like, from what I read, is basically you having an internal, like, dialogue with yourself, or processing of, like, death and life. So for you, and I'm sure this is something like Maribel pointed out, a lot of people have been thinking of probably because of COVID, right? Like it's still very recent in like the zeitgeist, like memory. So for you, like I feel like with this piece, you have these two different pieces, right? Where this one being like literally is blooming, full of life, and then if you go to the next one, it almost looks like I don't remember the word in English, but you know, like they talk about this in the Bible too. I think like when they used to bury people, they would wrap them up in these, right? Like embalm, kind of like an embalming, but like obviously no solution. They're just right. So basically like these two extremes of like, you know, vibrancy of life and then like the finality of it all. And I guess it kind of reminds me of this one concept. I don't remember the name of the type of Buddhist, but there's this very specific type of Buddhist group or like subset that like has a very intense mantra that they chant to help themselves overcome death. And basically they have these monks sitting in front of these different corpses of decayed stages, and they just chant, "That is me, that is me, that is me, that is me," over and over and over again, kind of get them over their fear of death, whatever that death may look like to them, right? Because death, I think, can take different forms for different people. Like, will I be remembered, or, you know, actually dying, like, you know, the loss of life. So I kind of remember this piece I kind of remember that like mantra where I was looking at these pieces in a sense where you're like kind of saying like, this is us, right? Like this is at one point going to be us at the end. This is the end product. And how I don't think you made it scary. I don't think you made it ugly. You made it like what I think of a lot of like Latin cultures I've seen where it's a celebration, even if it's gone, of the life, right? Where like it's not supposed to be this scary thing. It's part of our existence, part of the human experience, right? And it's honestly up to us to frame it in a positive or negative light. And I really love how you just made these peaceful looking images that, again, it's still an intense thing to confront, right? But I feel like you're doing your best. Like I feel like what this art did for you was like you sat yourself down, you were like, let's get over this, let's confront this. And as scary as it was, you know, you did the work. And now through this art, and this ties back to something I heard a friend once say about like how they view art, where art is fundamentally an exercise in empathy. You were trying to understand what the artist was trying to communicate when they made a piece, but likewise, the artist is trying to see what their piece does to their audience, how it speaks to the people that interact with it, right? And I feel like what you did here, right, in that concept of art is an exercise in empathy. You were like, all right, I need to get over this fear of mine, and you made this experiment, this platform, this process that you could, and then kind of like turn it into art so that others in an exercise of empathy could do the same if they choose to too. And yeah, I just really like that. And also, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this show. Hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick. It really, like the aesthetic of it really reminded me of it. It's called Hell's Paradise. It's like a brand new anime. We don't really need to get into it too much. But long story short, like this place that's like both heaven and like hell, you can become immortal by sacrificing like real human lives that slowly turn into flowers. And then by consuming those flowers, you gain immortality, right? So like the end products are these beings, like if you can see like, here's the face, they literally start turning into the earth. They start turning into like these beautiful flowers, and they're neither dead, but they're neither alive either. They're like in this halfway in between state. And it kind of reminded me of that too, right? Where like we see, sorry, the UI. The flowers aren't the things that are dead, right? It's the subject, it's the sprite. But in the flowers being there and being alive, I feel like it kind of reminds you of the circle of life. And it's like, she's not really gone. She's just, you know, moved on to like a different form, right? Come back to the earth. So yeah, that's enough of my talking. I don't know if you have anything you want to say based off of your own commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate like just being able to kind of hear you kind of, talk about it out loud, and you kind of process it. I think that a lot of the things that you mentioned are things that I definitely considered. You know, I think even from like the imagery that's borrowed, right? You mentioned from a lot of very pious Latin American cultures, right? I think it was important because even the person I collaborated with, her name is Tabata. She does hail from Latin American country, and so I think that was really important for us to really kind of have that nod to, Dia de los Muertos as a part of the imaging there. But then also even thinking about the sizing, right? So it's intentional that it was small versus something that kind of takes up a larger part of the wall, really as a nod to, my grandparents and how they had, certainly, those images of, those, holy figures that, that are, maybe about the same size or kind of posted up in different parts of their home. And so I really wanted it to match really that look and feel. But, in terms of talking about how life and death are factored in, certainly the imagery plays a role, right? You're quite literally kind of seeing that transition state, and we're kind of exploring really which is which. I think it's really meant to be ambiguous on purpose, just kind of showing that they're intrinsically linked, right? They're part of a cycle. But I think more importantly, I think going back to what you were saying about kind of empathy and really having to do that work for myself, I think it is really kind of a commentary on that. Essentially, especially during going through the pandemic, I think that was the most communal that experience where we all had to really kind of stare death in the face. And so I think that the more that you do that, the more you have to confront it, you inevitably transform, right? And so with this, right, I think that kind of the fear of it, like the darkness of it, is kind of stripped away. And yeah, it's something where you kind of get to embrace that as a part of living, right? Is that, hey, this is kind of that next state of being.
Like an exposure therapy for it.
In a sense, right? Yeah. And so this is really kind of the way, this is the kind of, for me, what came out of it. And I think in terms of how the series even came about, one of the other collaborators, so she was actually really instrumental in draping this white sheet. She actually hails from fashion, and she's currently a florist, and so she was actually really instrumental in ensuring that kind of the folds were tucked in the right way, that they hit the light the right way.
Yeah, it is a very clean presentation. I'm not gonna lie. Like it doesn't look like something you would just, you know what I mean? Like it looks like, like something you would see at like a real retail store or something,
Yeah, we we spent maybe too much time trying to get the sheet right, but I'm happy that we did because it came out beautifully. But she actually asked that question of are we alive or something just existing, and so I think this is really some of the imagery that came out of that work. But yeah, it's again kind of really great being able to kind of discuss the themes overall and kind of see how everything comes together. And I think the only other thing I'll say about this is, when we're talking about the fact that the way that I present my work is through, multiple mediums. So this is captured on film camera, and so that was kind of a very intentional choice. But simultaneously, there's also kind of a video component that is also, again, it wasn't quite the right fit for the gallery, but still trying to find like the right home for that. But essentially, you can imagine this exact same composition, but there's now a little bit more vitality to the portrait, where you can see the kind of those subtle motions of Tabitha underneath the sheet, kind of like slowly breathing, kind of moving back and forth. And so, and there's that question of, okay, well, in this case of the figure, like who's truly alive, who isn't. And so I think it's really designed to really have you question that without really coming away with a clear answer. Really, as a part of the process, just be able to contemplate how we view death, how we view life, how we view the transition in between.
And one of the things when you brought up like the Day of the Dead, when I was in Korea for a bit, like I noticed how much overlap there was between, like specifically East Asian, but I'm willing to bet like other Asian cultures too, and Latin American culture. And I used to even comment that, like, to my students especially, like we should really get along more because we're almost like cultural cousins. Like, so you mentioned Day of the Dead, right? In Asia, like in Korea and in Japan, like they have specific days just like the Day of the Dead, where they go and visit their ancestors, they go and prepare their favorite meals, they go and clean the tombs. Very similar, right? I don't think there's like as much music aspect of it, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's just so interesting seeing how many different cultures similarly approach and almost normalize death, right? So yeah. And thank you for the input. That's another reason why I like what we're doing right now for the Love for Immigrants tour, like with Maribel's like idea of having these artists with us, right? Like I just love the insight that people can bring, because it's kind of like when people have like that favorite show, favorite movie, and like they love it to the point that they buy the director's cut or the commentary cut, right? And you just want to see like what's on all these people's minds as they were making these things. So yeah, I'm just really grateful that we can collaboratively all do that together right now.
Yeah, and I would
Yeah,
say
absolutely. This is
encourage.
incredible.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, encourage artists to share, all of you to share your roots as well, and how your cultures impact like the creation of your work. That's something I haven't asked as much throughout the process, but definitely this is a space for expressing that piece. And to your point, I think a lot of times we kind of really highlight the artist and the artistry to show like this is not just art that's coming from someone that has quote unquote culture art, but then this is how artists are wanting to express, and they happen to be from X or Y culture, and sometimes their culture have a lot to do with how they express. So it's just a kind of like this way of showcasing art that can live in both places. Like it can live in a cultural conversation, but it can live in an artistic conversation. It's just in the sense of what you're normally used to seeing in what they call quote unquote high art places. It's like you can be both, and why not when it's such a beautiful thing. So it's usually what I'm personally thinking about. But to this piece, and I'll let Wallace speak on the cultural aspect, but I just want to reiterate how collaborative this piece was. You had a dance company or a dancer
Oh
that's from a dance
wow.
company, Tabitha, right? And then you had the
Yeah, right, yeah.
right, and the fashion designer who helped with the props and the
A
and the way
true
things were
MMA artist.
displayed. So like really collaborative piece. And then what I wanted to highlight as well is this part when Wallace says, here, where to go? Here it is. Okay. Wole makes the claim that the cycle of life and death is a process of ongoing transformation. Tragedy gives way to joy, and life is inevitably followed by death. Wole went through the process of making peace with these two states of being, and in doing so, kind of give space for us to do the same. So thank you, Wole, for this reflection on death and inviting us to also make peace. This piece definitely was my lifeline when I was sitting at the gallery waiting for people to stop by, really looking at this piece and reflecting on that, because that was the theme for my life in the moment. A person that was close to me has passed away. So I hope this inspires our viewers, all of these pieces of work, and also reflecting and finding strength in art, in philosophy, in the messaging behind these pieces, very conceptual and beautiful and deep and profound. So that's all I think I have to say. And if you wanted to mention the historical piece, that was my big question for you, is what is the historical inspiration for this piece, whether it's something researched or something that was from um, your own cultures. If I'm not mistaken, Nigeria and the United States are both of your cultures, and correct me if I'm misremembering, but yeah, I'll
No,
open the
you're right.
floor for
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah, you're definitely spot on. So yeah, I would say that in terms of kind of the style, the composition, it very much kind of hails from Renaissance paintings of really the Mother Mary in this case. In terms of, you think about like the way the head is tilted, the way like the light kind of catches the face. But in terms of my personal culture, yes, I am Nigerian by culture, by heritage. My parents emigrated from there in the 80s to the DC area. And I grew up here. But it's actually interesting because, especially when it comes to most Nigerian cultures, we actually try to hold on to life for as long as we can, and so I think there is kind of this deep apprehension of death. And so I think that was something that was personal for me as a part of this contemplation, was kind of letting go of that apprehension, letting go of that fear of it. And instead of kind of like choosing to be like callous, like really, celebrating the fact that, it's okay when this happens, even though it can be really painful. But like, what's to come is infinitely more incredible. And so I think that's really what I want to come away with here. But yeah, I would say outside of that, I mean, I feel like everything that we've shared about this is, I mean, it's incredibly spot on. Also, you know, really encouraging to hear, kind of seeing how it lands with different people. And I definitely, you know, hope even well beyond this that we get to keep that conversation going.
Word.
Thank you. Truly relevant, I think, to the times we all experienced through COVID-19, this death in our families or in our friends, or even just if no one experienced death in their life, even in the news, knowing how many people did pass away. And this piece just really, that inspiration that came from that time, we would think, and we hope that we would have an artist that did that reflection and that came from that space as well. And so here it is. And with that, congratulations, and we'll also move on to Yeliz because it's almost time. Here it is. And with that, congratulations, and we'll also move on to Yeliz because it's almost time. Yep, we got
Cool.
about 10 minutes for that.
Cool. So I think, like, fact check me. Lisa's art is wait, I just saw it. I know it's on one of the corners. Oh, right here, right?
Oh, yes, turn around. Yep, you found
Cool.
it.
All right, so yeah, I just want to give some context for Elise before we get into the art. So Elise is from Turkey originally, but also in DC. And fact check me, you've been painting since you were like 4, I think. So you've been in this for a while. And I think from what I read, like for you, painting's about like increasing self-awareness and like connecting with who you are and like finding peace in that process, right? So to me, it kind of seems like for you, art is like a therapeutic outlet, right? And that's why, to me, your art seems to feel so emotional because there's a lot that it has in it, right? And like going back to the art is empathy thing, I feel like one of the things I like the most about your art is that you're very like, you know, that expression, you wear your heart on your sleeve or whatever, like you're very obvious with your emotions. I feel like that, but like in a good way, is what I could say about your art. You know what I mean? Yeah, so just getting into some of the actual pieces themselves. Let's look at, oh, sorry, the mouse is frozen. Why won't you work? All right, here we go. I have to press the other button. All right, so let's start with the first piece, which is this one. Come on, mouse. All right, there we go. So, a los días brillantes. So to the like brilliant days, but like for those that don't speak Spanish, not brilliant in the sense of like intelligence, but brilliant like in the sense of a shine or like a diamond shine, right? So yeah, let's just get into it. So one of the things that I actually really like about this piece is, I know this seems silly, but the hat. I've always really liked like those French like beret style hats, and it's just pretty cool to see this in like your art piece, especially since the aesthetic is so different from like we usually see in like French art. But another thing too, and this is just like a person, like going back to that game, buy, preserve, burn, or steal. I would probably either steal or like buy this, depending how my fantasies are looking, just because I really love the color red. And I think like you did a really good job of capturing that color in so many different tones. Like red is really an important color to me. So it's just cool to see how you leverage color in such a like nice way to carry across the emotion. I used to joke around with Kiki. She's my partner. There's this artist I really like called Roscoe. I'll see if I can find a piece. I don't know. Roscoe is like peak like fufu art, like people that smell their own farts. For those that like watch South Park and get the reference. But a lot of people tend to think that like people who like Roscoe are like everything that's wrong with art. They're like for people who are fake deep and all these things and blah 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 blah. And sure, that's valid. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people who just say they like it and you know they're just
I
saying
think
it.
artists like Roscoe and people who don't care about art don't get Roscoe.
That's it. You know, that's fair. The thing I like about Roscoe is, without getting too into it, there's this concept called like, oh my God, what is it called? Spectrometry. Basically, like scientists can tell what a star is made out of by seeing what color it gives off, because elements burn in a very specific color. Like if you add salt to a flame, even if the flame was like blue or white, it'll turn yellow because that's what salt looks like when it burns, right? So what I liked about Roscoe is like spectral analysis. I think that's called spectral. It's like the spectral analysis of like the human psyche, right? Like when you see Roscoe's pieces, there's these giant pieces that he says you're supposed to stand like 6 inches away, so you really feel immersed by it. And if you look at it, like he starts with like these like, you know, cheery bright colors and eventually ends up like going to darker and darker palettes until eventually he ended up committing suicide from like an overdose. So to me, this is like the spectral analysis of a person who has depression, like their journey and their process through that. So obviously way different in aim, let's say, but I would say like in vibe, it's similar. Like the colors here, like even though they're bright and cheery, we can see like a lot of different, oh, there it is. A lot of different, wait, let me go in the right order. Yes, different palettes. To me, they just evoke different emotions. And I think you even mentioned that this was inspired off the poem Artwork by Susie Kassim. So I'm just gonna really quickly pull up some things. So each day is born with sunrise and each ends in a sunset, the same way we open our eyes to see the light and close them to hear the dark. And, you know, it just goes on to detail like all these different aspects of the human experience. But I think the thing that I like the most about it is like, I feel like you get a very clear color palette by reading these things, right? Like the color of the sky, the color of dusk and dawn. And I feel like these pieces, like, given that this was influenced by that poem, I feel like this poem is most manifested not only in the subject, but like in the color palette. And I really, really like that about it. So anyways, I'll stop talking. Yeliz, do you have anything you would like to comment or add or even correct if I got anything wrong?
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me, so I'm having a lot of technical issues. I don't know if my video is on. It seems like it's on, but I don't my.
Oh, so
I'm not
usually what
okay.
helps
here.
is turn off your video and then just leave your audio on, and that'll usually help with the connection.
Oh yeah, no, it was off for a while, and I tried to turn it on, and now it's like, but it's okay as long as if you can hear me.
Yeah,
Yes.
you kind of cut in and out, but
Can you?
we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. No, I think you were explaining great, so thank you. I was like listening, and you kind of explained how I felt as I was creating those two pieces.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, my journey is like mostly my own self struggles. I think it's like, you know, human experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lisa, it's hard to hear you. I don't know if other people are experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I would say if you add it to the chat, one of us could read it on your
Oh, yeah,
behalf.
that's a good point.
You can add it to my chat, I mean to everyone, and then I'll read it.
No, no worries, Elise. Don't apologize. Yeah, this is the one downside of Zoom. I feel like how have they not nailed these quality control issues yet? It's been 4 years, 5 years since you came
Right.
out. Come on, guys. Like,
And if there's
no, thank
anything
you.
else you want to say, feel free to add it there. Didn't mean to cut you off there. Let's see which ones we have there. What's awakening, transforming experience mean to Yeliz? Did I add that one here? One thing that I wanted to just express my gratitude and to Yeliz, who's been just so great, showed up twice to the exhibit, and even though with a full-time job, also making this beautiful art, I always say any of our artists that also work full-time and trying to make their art while they're managing a lot, it's always inspiring to see, because it's not easy to do that in that manner.
True.
Yeah.
Actually,
one-
Elise. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The one thing that stood out to me, like you were saying, is that emotions, the processing emotion through the artwork as being where the inspiration came from. Also, what started off as maybe, you know, getting the signal in the beginning, or at some point that emotions were to be repressed or creativity was to be repressed, like finally coming with this piece and it being these pieces are being that venue for exploration and healing. I just can't reiterate that enough. And we welcome everyone, every viewer here, and everyone that sees this piece to do the same, in getting inspired in that way, to use art as a force for healing, and transforming, so that eventually we open up to self-awareness and experience that.
Hmm. And Yeliz, I had a question. You can type it in the chat if you want to. But was this like piece? I don't remember the style, but I know that there's one style of making art pieces where like you can't, or you're not supposed to pick up your pencil for the entirety of the drawing. So is this, I guess, like the easiest way to ask it, is this one continuous line for the whole picture?
This one is yes. Yeah, can you hear
Wow.
me?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yes, now we hear you great.
Of course, except the coloring, but yeah, the pencil is
Is one
yeah.
solid. So for artists at home, or not even for artists, just people at home, just to empathize with how hard this is, right? Like literally draw like the nearest thing around you, like your stapler, your own face in the mirror, whatever, without picking up your pencil and still making it look human. That is one of the hardest things I've ever had to try to do. I think it was like in my 5th grade art class. And I think at that point, that was when I decided I have no artistic talent, but it is very, very hard to do that. And I think you nailed it pretty well between kind of having like these stitched in marks that are part of the aesthetic of like the human here. Also play with the stitched in marks of the lines that you use to draw the face, all the parts of the face.
Okay, my audio is working now. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like I have a couple of these, and every time I finish them, I also don't know. I can't believe how I created them, and because it's really hard, as you say, you need to be really in the flow. I feel like I am having the most like self-confidence when I am creating these pieces, because you just literally cannot take your pen, pencil, or your paintbrush. Like, you can't really, you have to press it and just let it go. Yeah, this is one of the pieces. After I created, I kind of felt like more uplifted and more confident. And one of the challenges I had when I create pieces, that I started like feeling, oh my god, I'm gonna hate it. What am I doing? It's like I continuously watch what is passing through my mind, and at the end, of course, it's just a relief and it just feels great. So yeah, it's great that you noticed this piece was one of the pieces that I just didn't take off my pen on the page.
I even like the quote.
This piece was one of the pieces that I just didn't take off my pen on the page.
I even like the quote that you incorporated from Kierkegaard. And for those that don't know, Kierkegaard was this like philosopher from, I think, the post existentialism. I can't remember what time period he was in. I think it was around that time though. And if I remember correctly, he incorporated a lot of theology into his like philosophy framework. So this quote that you have about, to venture causes anxiety, but to not venture is to lose oneself, and to venture in the highest is precisely what it means to be conscious of oneself. So again, I think like, not even just in this piece, but like in like the themes of your art, I feel like you really challenge yourself with the different types of pieces that you create, because they're not monolithic, right? They're very different in aesthetic, even if the color palettes are the same and everything, but like the format in which you make them. And again, like you were saying, these are hard pieces to make. Like, I seriously want to challenge anyone at home, artist or not, to like draw a simple picture without picking up their pen or pencil once, right? It's hard to do this. You took that challenge on, you ventured it, and you found yourself. You found that you really like doing these, and you like how you feel when you see the last product, right? So yes, it's anxiety inducing to be like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Do I do it in one sitting? Do I do it in multiple bursts? How do I make it look continuous if it's not in one sitting? All these things are hard things to consider, and take into consideration as an artist. I feel like people never consider that, like, to be an artist, you also have to be like a project manager. You also have to be like marketing. You have to do all these different things that are outside of the scope of art, right? Especially to be like a effective or productive artist. But you took on these challenges, and so did everyone else kind of here in this gallery, right? They took on their challenges in their own ways, and I feel like in doing that, you know, going back to Kierkegaard, they found themselves, right? They self-actualized. So yeah, just another reason why I love art.
Yeah.
So I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, it's me. It's a test of creativity, I think. I love that you said that, you know, on many roles of artists.
Word. And, you know, kind of mirroring like Kierkegaard, I think the next school of thought after that was like Nietzsche and existentialism and nihilism. So one of the things like I like about nihilism, and when I say nihilism, I don't mean like that edgelord manosphere, like those teens that need like therapy type of nihilism. Like nihilism, for those that don't know, is fundamentally the idea that like nothing inherently has meaning, right? Like there's no pre-designed course of action for things. It's up to you to figure out what your own purpose in life is going to be. And just to really contextualize the nihilism, it was kind of like a school of thought that came after people in Europe were kind of outgrowing religion, where again, if you were a Christian, according to Christianity, your whole point in life is just to be a Christian, right? So these philosophers are like, wait, what if God's not a thing? What if we're not supposed to just worship a thing? What if we don't have an innate purpose? What does that mean? So one of the beautiful things I like about nihilism is we like the things that make us most human are the acts of creating. That's what gives us purpose. That's what gives us meaning. Having something that we created that we can point to and be like, this explains who I am or where I was in that life, or this helped me process whatever I was going through, right? For nihilists, creationism is one of the highest acts that a human being can ever undertake, right? So I just really love and appreciate that all these artists that we have in this space, again, a space that I'm just gonna go out and flex from Marisol, space that Marisol made, right? But like to have all of this here where we can just talk about why we created these things, why it's important to us, and why it just matters, I think is peak nihilism. And I'm like in the healthiest, positive way ever. And I'm really happy to see that. So.
And we invite our artists here to also, if you have last words to say, we're right at the hour. Also, if you just dedicated the hour to this time and have to hop off, we also understand. We discussed your art first, and now we have a couple more artists to discuss as well before heading out. But you know, this is your time to say your retreating words.
Yeah, can I interject with some commentary?
Wait, can you just move a little bit closer to the mic? You sound a little muted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. First off, with Wale's work, I love everyone's work. I think the exhibit looks beautiful. The space is really cool. This is awesome. Wale, I really love how timeless your piece is, or your piece is. I love the sweatshirt. I think it really adds this kind of like modernity, but also timelessness to the themes, to the style, to the depiction. It's really beautiful. I think the version of the sprite where her face is showing is very viable. It's very pleasant. It's very classic. But I would steal the white one because I think it's way more mysterious. And Yeliz, everything you're saying about awareness and confidence and the flow state really resonates with me as an artist, and I really love your pieces. I love that they all kind of have like a varying style that's very unique to you. The colors are beautiful, and I think that they deserve to be preserved.
Word. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Yonic, for all the love. In summary, love and encouragement for one another. And this is what it's about. It's about that. And anyone else, the Wole, Yeliz, before you hop off, do you have any other words?
Yeah, I'll briefly chime in. Rahsa, thank you. That's incredibly kind. And honestly, I would 100% buy your work. I mean, I think again, like the fact that we were able to embrace these elements of both spirituality and existentialism, and also being able to kind of find that through the medium that speaks best to us. I think it's really neat being able to show alongside you. And of course to Yeliz, my neighbor, so great to kind of see you again in the virtual space. And of course, Maribel, thank you for putting this on. Los, thank you for hosting. The space is absolutely incredibly beautiful, literally unlike anything I've ever seen before. If you had asked me, a year ago, if I would ever be showing my space in a virtual reality gallery, having kind of a virtual tour and artist talk, I would have told you I didn't believe you. But here we are, and this is beyond any expectation I have. So thank you again for having me, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Thank you so much and for your kind
Yeah.
words. Yeliz?
Thank you as well. Yeah, I had seen Wole's artwork in person. I had that privilege, but when I entered the room, I was a little bit late, and we were just discussing about Rahsa's that big piece that unfortunately I couldn't hear. I couldn't catch up. So I would like to get in touch with them, and I would like to hear about it more because it was really inspirational. Rahsa, so Rahsa, right? I don't know if I'm
Rahsa, yeah.
Yeah, correctly. So it's a huge piece. I think, I'm not sure, but it was
Carlos,
really
can you go
beautiful.
to Rahsa's piece so she can see
Sure.
it?
Sure. We'll also like Yeliz, just for future reference, we recorded this so you can see the video whenever you want, and it'll include all the conversational. But yeah, this is the piece
Okay,
for
great.
people.
Yeah, I would like to, because yeah, this is amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. I can just give a brief overview of it one time. It's called God Body, or Los Cuerpos de la Diosa, which is just about the many selves that live in one, higher and lower, moving together. This concept of, dynamism in the self. And this piece took me several years to create. I set it down for a few years and then came back very transformed myself, and the piece is very transformed as a result of just the passage of time. So it's really about growth and dynamism.
That's a good way to summarize it. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
And
I
for
just
those,
want to. Oh, go ahead, Carlos.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for those at home who want to like see this space like in the game, I'm just gonna show you the name of the gallery. Basically, if you type in this name in the search bar of like the game, and by the way, the game is free. That's the cool thing about this. The game is categorically free. Like, you don't gotta spend. There's no like microtransactions, which is how a lot of these games get you. None of that. Like, all of this is free. The only thing you really gotta pay for is, if you are an artist, for the codes to upload your art. And even then, a lot of the time, Sam, Kelly, and a lot of the folk there will help you out. But yeah, go over to the game. If you have Windows, great. It'll run on your machine like nothing. If you have Mac or Linux, there are some instructions on the website on how to get it to work. A lot of the work is abstracted for you. You literally just have to like turn on a setting or something. But yeah, once you sign into the game, type in L as in Lima, 4, I as in India, and then home, gallery, awakening, all of that. If you just start typing in a few of the first letters, it'll pop up. But you can see the space, you can interact with like, the entire art and everything. So yeah, for those people who either are on this tour and want to see it later, or people who are watching at home, more than welcome to.
And I just want to say a couple last words. Here we have our artists who are not just bringing diversity of cultures, but also diversity of thought and experiences. And just to reiterate, Wole comes to us based in DC, US and Nigerian roots. We have Yeliz from Turkey and based in DC. We have Rahsa, which is so many places, born in New Jersey, from Puerto Rican and Brazilian roots and based internationally. We have the artwork that I think for most of y'all, it is for sale. Wole's piece is a special price of $899 for people who are viewing this and are art sponsors. That's a special price if you get both at the same time, $899. We have Yeliz's piece, the ones who aren't sold yet. Each one tends to be around $250. Let me see. Yep, for the most part, if there's a difference, Yeliz, let us know. And we have Rahsa, also known by Yonic, is mural canvas is $5,000. So this is our pricing for those listeners who are interested in purchasing art. Or prints. Maybe prints are also options that you can let us know and we can connect you.
Oh, and you raise a good point. for artists at home and for people who want to see what the art on the game looks like, this is the website Cultura with a K .art. And you as an artist, like once you have your art uploaded, every week you get an email that says how many people bought your art, how many people looked at your art inside of the game. And here on the website, you can search an artist, search a style, and then see what kind of art they have so you can find in the game. Or if you hypothetically like, yo, I love like Yeliz's art and I want to see all the art that she has in the game, and you've only found one because the game's kind of like random in how you find her. You can search here, kind of like looking for like a musician's discography. You can find like all their body of work here, their bios, or all that stuff. And again, for the artists that were featured here, if you want to update your Cultura page to point to whatever Instagram or Twitter or any handles that you have, or any links to personal sites, definitely check out the Cultura page because in game, if I'm curious about an artist, all the information about that artist comes directly from this site. So the more stuff you have out here, the more likely people are to interact with you in ways and platforms that you prefer. Just as a heads up. I think that's pretty much it for us. So once again, I was your host, the Loaf with the Most. We had our artists, Rahsa, aka Yonic, Wole, and Yeliz all here with us today. And we also had Maribel, who is the founder of Love for Immigrants, also with us on our guided tour. It was my honor and pleasure to like lead this guided tour. Honestly, it was really cool to talk to the artists and get to learn more about the art. So again, this space is open indefinitely. So whenever people want to stop by in the game, more than welcome to. We also have another space from our last exhibit in case people do want to see it, because we have multiple exhibits. Damn, I can't find it. But basically, if you look at the profile for this account, which is Love for Immigrants, you should see all of our spaces. And again, all free, all open all the time whenever people want. So
Yeah, we might actually close it. I got to talk to all the artists and see
Oh,
if we
right,
can leave it
right,
open
right.
for a year. I think the original thought was to leave it open for a month, but it takes so much to make the space and make it beautiful and have these conversations. It takes a little while for people to even find a space that I might request artists to let us have it open for a year or indefinitely. I'll see what people
And if
can
you
gift.
word.
Wait, or 15. So this is the poem. Sirajul Islam is one of the artists I met through Instagram. He lives in a refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, and is originally a Rohingya refugee. So really wanting to go home, but one of the ways that they translate all the pain that they see or the suffering that they see at the camp is through poetry and through photography. So they're also an artist activist. And here's the poem. And Carlos, if you can go inside the virtual reality to all the way to the right, we also have a quote of the poem for those
Oh yes, I know exactly what you're talking
who
about.
want to
Yep.
view it after this reading. So here I begin. The poem is called If I Were a Bird. So it's the one to the left, yeah. If I were a bird, I could fly everywhere and reach wherever I want. If I were a bird, I could sing freely the melody of my art. If I were a bird, I could cross any border without passport and visa. If I were a bird, I could never face hatred and would be safe from war. If I were a bird, I could enjoy my life just the way I deserve. If I were a bird, I could never realize how unfair the world is. I'll give you
That's
a
a really
minute.
nice poem.
And just this desire for freedom and freedom of movement and freedom to exist in a space where we find ourselves, we belong is sort of my take on the poem. But definitely feel free to jump in if you have in a space where we find ourselves, we belong is sort of my take on the poem. But definitely feel free to jump in if you have your own. And now I'll move into the theme and what it meant for us. So awakening, transforming experiences was a theme that originally we named it was named Catharsis, and we realized quickly that catharsis is not very accessible to everyone from every culture, but this idea of awakening is. Um, and I think most people, if we live a human life, we go through transformations, and they could look different for different people. We either transform our hearts or our emotions, or transform our minds and our thoughts, or transform or have a situation that transforms us as humans in integral ways. And so we left it wide open so artists can define what awakening meant to them in their lives, as an invitation for viewers to also reflect on how they have awakened in the past, but also if they haven't tried to become awake in some way, to think of ways to sort of push that envelope, push their boundaries to awaken in ways that they feel that they need to, or to have experiences that will help them get there and discover what they were sort of maybe missing, a reframe, or missing an expression, or just whatever was missing and now was found. And this also was in hopes that truly what we awaken to ultimately is truth and authenticity, and finding our truth, and being able to express ourselves in more authentic ways. And it came about, the context of this, to give you a context, right after I think the worst of COVID-19 had passed. So we actually could sit down and reflect on what we all had gone through collectively. And for the people on the team, well, mostly the curator and I, that we sat down with, who's also an artist. So we sat down with Manju, who was an artist, participated here, and Salome. And it really is a collaborative idea from artists who were involved in previous years, who are involved this year as well, and reflecting together on what we wanted to express to the world. And and for most of the pieces that Salome and that Manju have in their repertoire of collections of art, a lot of it is about spirituality, or a lot of it is expressing, in some way, this idea of processing, um, processing in many ways. Like Manju will process, will meditate, or she'll do yoga as she's creating art. Salome will process different things, like maybe exploring different religions in some work, or expressing the difficulties, maybe that contextually she'll pay attention to the issues of the world, and she'll express that through the art. So also very much an artivist. So this expression, and so yeah, so this really came about because of this conversation as artists. And for myself, I actually took the time to create one art piece, which I have to recreate again, with this idea of catharsis. And I wanted to put myself in those shoes as an artist, if we were going to put this open call out, to really feel like, what does it feel to go through this? And what does it feel to really express transforming experiences in my world? And in that time, I didn't have the word transforming experience. We just had the word catharsis. So for me, it meant becoming whole, a whole human, and integrating myself. And I started with my 3 countries, which is the United States, in Brooklyn, Colombia, and Puerto Rico, and trying to integrate that, and integrate many pieces, instead of being so divided with it myself. So yeah, that was a bit of transforming experience. We also asked ourselves, what does transforming experiences mean to different kinds of people? Because the word immigrant and the experiences that different immigrants face, that immigrant experience or refugee experience, it's complex, it's different for different people. And so we often thought, like, what does this mean to a single mom? What does it mean to a DACA student to transform? What situations, what difficulties have they like surpassed, and what transformed, and they went to the other side, and now they're in a better place? And for different experiences, it might look different. Like for someone at a detention center, for someone who's a child of an immigrant, that are trying to navigate more than one culture that exists within them, for someone without access to a home. Like what does this mean, transforming yourself? for different contexts of the immigrant experience, and different people. And so, yeah, that was a bit more of the theme and what it meant for us. And after COVID hit, like the 2020 was really like the one where we really focused on COVID. We also were going through, in terms of context, starting to see the issue with Russia and Ukraine, and starting to see like the US and Russia becoming, I guess, even more unfriendly towards each other. And in the face of a potential nuclear war that could wipe out the planet, I think we all really felt it deeply as we were exploring the theme, in the knowing that at any moment this whole thing could end. So giving way for possibilities of opening our heart and moving away from fear and opening up to joy and to loving more fully and expanding really who we are, and kind of moving away from a state of fear despite the current times, despite the difficulties of a potential war. So yeah, this is definitely what that theme meant for us, and I haven't expressed it enough before, but I'm glad you all took the time to listen and to be here to hear that part. And yeah, that's really it. We, if we're gifted with 5 more minutes, I could also give our audience a little explanation as to Love for Immigrants and our journey. And again, if you have to hop off, don't feel like you're being rude. I understand your time is a gift. And we have, really started with an idea. This began with a photo essay project. I went to American University and decided to do a capstone project around this, immigration, this theme, which is not just an issue to me. It's very personal because I come from an immigrant community and I'm an artist at heart. No matter how many careers I go through, everything I do as an artist, I think as an artist, no matter how much I learn, probably shouldn't say this on camera, no matter how much I learn about social innovation and different project management processes, everything I do like an artwork. And if you're an artist, you know how art is done. It's chaotic and it's anxiety
not linear.
producing.
Yeah.
And art is not simple, and it's beautiful at the end, and you get that feeling of closure of like, this is what I did all that craziness for. But in the moment, you feel crazy, you feel distraught, you go through all these feelings, you break down and cry. I mean, that's how I do art. Which and everything I've done, even this project, is like an art piece in that way. And so for me, I thought, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have connections to vast amounts of ways of direct service, and there's enough of that in DC. But what I am is I'm an artist, and I can bring the artist perspective to an important issue and try at least attempt a narrative change, even if small. It's the little grain of sand that I can hold. And from there, and so this was around 2017, I made some connections with Ayuda, who's a social service organization in DC and also provide legal service. And they lended us their gala space when they did their gala for fundraising to hold those stories. So those photo essays, one theme was solidarity, another theme was journeys, and one really showcased the life journey of immigrants, of select like 5 people, and the other one showed the collaboration and the efforts and the organizing that's happening. I looked at Latinos in Foco, which is a New York City based Latin American photography group. So most of them are from like Colombia or Peru or just different countries, and they're photographers and documenting their artistic process. I documented also Ayuda's work, and especially at their events, and showcasing like the work that they're doing with immigrants. It documented Curated in one of their leadership courses, where they were trying to teach people who had gotten their ability to vote and their citizenship to be advocates in the community, inspire other people to vote. And this was around the time where voting was really important because we were about to really make a big shift of presidency. So that was those 2 projects. But in 2020, we realized, or like a little bit before 2020, we realized that this really needed to be collaborative if we wanted to really tell a full, complex human story of the diverse different immigrant and refugee experiences, it needed to come from other people, from other artists. It needed to be told through other perspectives and lenses. And each artist, you all are part of that mission. You do that. You express mostly through yourselves, but even sometimes express things that other people are really feeling and going through as well. So it's just really showing the diversity of experiences there. And yeah, in 2021 we had our first exhibit. I'm sorry, 2020 we had our first exhibit, art healing speaker series and exhibit. In 2021 we had unweaved stories. And now in 2023 we have awakening transforming experiences, and here we are. We have a virtual one, we had an in-person one, and hopefully we have even more opportunities for people to engage with us and share their stories.
Word. Also at the end of the video when we upload it, there will be a link if you want to like buy us a coffee, so to speak. All of this, what we do is free, but we do try to pay the people that we work with, so that usually comes out of either grants or funding or our own pockets. So if people, you know, if you want to support the mission and see more of these cool projects, see more artists featured, more virtual galleries and tours, literally just look at the link at the bottom of the video description and feel free to buy us a cup of coffee, so to speak.
Maybe a quick word for our sponsor,
Sure.
Occupy White Walls, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
exhibit. So we have the opportunity to create the Occupy White Walls space thanks to Occupy White Walls and Cultura, who donate the codes for our artists, and we're really grateful for that. We also have in the in-person exhibit, we have Athari group who connected us. We pitched and we got a small grant from sorry, I'm blanking. Our special funder, hold on.
We'll put the name in the video description.
We'll put the name,
yeah.
But really special foundation. And thanks to that, we were able to, let me see. I just remember, the Russell, his last name. The Russell Gibbs Foundation. And so thanks to that, we have the ability to have an in-person exhibit, and hopefully, and we already have the ability to do something small next year, which will most likely be a fundraiser, but anything that you can help us with, we'll continue this beautiful work. Thank you all.
I have one question.
Sure.
Okay, so the exhibition I know is live now, thanks to you guys' work. But I was wondering if there's any dates that you're thinking of like sharing it with the public to have like a virtual exhibition like opening.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. I know you still have some work to do in terms of the other artists, but I was just wondering if that like would have like a certain date, or if it would be open for an amount of time.
Yes, we'll definitely share that information for the opening. For those of you watching this, we have already opened, but maybe off camera we'll discuss the logistics of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I would just love to like funnel people, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's it for everyone. I don't want to keep anyone any longer. Seriously, again, thank you everyone so much for stopping by. Thank you everyone for watching. It was really an honor and so much fun to just do this experience with everyone. So, yeah, let me just stop my sharing. Cool, because my computer's running so hot right now. Anyways, everyone have a great weekend wherever you are. I know everyone's in different time zones, so I'll just say have a good weekend. Take care, everyone, and yeah, for our viewers at home, I'll see y'all next time we do anything.